Deep Threat Sports Network fans, welcome back. Tonight you have Bryant and myself. We're back at it here this week. And like we told you last week, we're going to talk a little bit about the spring transfer portal as it kind of looks to come to a close here before the next couple of days. And Bryant and I are really going to dive deep into it tonight. We're going to talk about some top 10 teams, some of the top transfers out there, what's really going on with them. And then we're going to really break this down at the very end of this episode with some Mizzou football talk. We know a lot of you that listen to us out there like to hear what we had to say about the Mizzou stuff and what's kind of going on with them and give you the latest and greatest details on our Missouri Tigers. Bryant, how you doing, brother? Glad to have you back and doing this again this week.
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. Weather's warming up. Transfer portal in the springtime is closing down, but it's still been pretty wild. Not as big of names as you see come in the winter portal, but still plenty to talk about here in this episode, and I think it'll be a good show.
Yeah, I would say overall, not as many big names, right, in the spring portal window. But I think, honestly, Bryant, we had the biggest name in the whole entire transfer portal take it by storm and really make it dramatic. I mean, we'll get into that in a little bit, but man, the biggest name in the portal entries so far this season for sure did happen here in the spring. But as of Wednesday, April 23rd at 10 a.m. Central Time, there were 3,671 entries, and only 1,893 of those entries had recommitted to a new job, right? That's 52%. So, what that means out there, just kind of breaking this down fundamentally and having a little chit chat before we dive too much into it, what really is the portal? And what kind of it entails. Just because you enter the portal doesn't mean that you're going to go get a job elsewhere, right? I mean, this is you trying to better yourself. This is sometimes the bigger name players, the studs, kind of chasing a bag. And sometimes you see here in this spring portal window, some of these teams come to spring football practice and realize, hey, we kind of have a need right here. Or, hey, we just had an injury and we kind of have a guy that's going to miss some time. So we need to fill a gap a little bit. And sometimes some of these lesser, I guess you could say, players really go out and find really good jobs that fit for them. So, I mean, at 52%, Brian, that's 48% of collegiate athletes that have entered the portal right now, technically, the way I see it, are unemployed.
Absolutely, and I think it's another reason why you don't see as many big of players enter during the spring because I feel like it's a lot more risky. You got teams that go through spring ball; they kind of have the rosters where they semi want them, and spring is kind of a one in, one out type of transfer portal where, hey, you lose a defensive end, let's go find one. Let's you lose an offensive tackle, let's go find one. So yeah, a lot of these big time names guys aren't coming in because of that, and they're already probably starters to begin with. Um, but the fact that only 52% of these guys are committed just goes and shows you, like you mentioned, that the transfer portal is not a job transfer. It's put your name out there and you may not get picked. And you see it all over the country, especially this spring, where you might have a guy transfer out of this is just an example. Let's say Washington, and he has no spot, and so he has to move down and go to like a Division II or a JUCO type team just to get his name back into the fold. So, yeah, it's the spring transfer portal is boring compared to the winter portal, but it's a lot riskier, and that's why I think you see a lot of these middle guys kind of get in. And like you mentioned, a guy that may not get a big time position in the winter get a starting role in a Power Four team in the spring because there's just not as many names out there.
Yeah, and I think what some of these players need to understand is, like you just said, just because you enter doesn't mean you're going to get a better gig. That's not what this means. And I know some of those guys out there understand that, and they're just trying to go find some playing time and probably going to hop right back in the portal next season if they have a good season. They're kind of gambling on themselves. So in that aspect, I like it, man. I do like it where players don't just go and sit on a roster and get buried in a depth chart and rot, right? I mean, I kind of like it. And Garrett and I talked about this on our basketball show a little bit. If coaches have the rights to go hop around job to job and move around every year to try to better themselves, then hey, man, I think the players should too. Let's just get some regulations around it a little bit.
Absolutely.
So right now in the spring, the portal opened up on April 16th. Brian, I believe it closes down the 25th or 28th. And what that means necessarily is you have to enter your name if you want to transfer in the portal between said dates. If you cannot enter outside of said dates unless you're a graduate, which at that point you have kind of an unlimited reign at what you can do, or if your head coach loses his job, moves on, then it opens you back up to enter the portal in another set of said dates following that move of the coach. Now, this does not mean that you have to commit and have your new job in these dates. This just means that you have to have your name in the portal. You have to be in the hat. You can no longer enter outside of those dates unless, like I said, your coach is removed or you are a graduate transfer. And at that point, sometimes things aren't always the best to move at that time in your career. You're kind of probably there for a reason. So, with that being said, Bryant, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add around the regulations and guidelines of the portal. Just trying to help our listeners out there that don't necessarily know what all the portal entails get a better understanding of what all is involved with it.
I do have one thing to add. It's just kind of a fun fact. You mentioned coaches leaving. So, say your head coach leaves and you want to jump in the portal and it's June. You actually do not have an unlimited time in there. You actually only have 30 days. So, let's say your coach enters the portal on June 1st. You have until the end of the month to enter the portal. If you do not, you have to stay on that team or lose a season like you would back in the old transfer days. So, I just wanted to bring that up just for a fun fact. It's not an unlimited portal, kind of like graduates are. If your coach leaves, you have 30 days.
Yeah, it's always usually set dates unless you're that graduate and you just kind of at that point they're trying to benefit you to go get some PT. It sounds like at the end of your career. So I do like that for
Absolutely.
the graduates. I do like what they do for them. So
I agree.
kind of moving on here, I'm just going to kind of go over the top 10 after the spring transfer portal is said and done. This obviously takes everything into account, not just the spring, but we have seen some shuffling here compared to our, winter, fall, whatever season you want to call it, portal to our now spring portal, kind of some shuffling of the teams. And this is all per On Three. You will see us use On Three and 247 Sports for most of our information, especially when it comes to the transfer portal. Otherwise, it's usually just Bryant and myself, boots on the ground, beating the pavement, trying to get everything we can get our hands on. But when it comes to the portal stuff, On Three and 247 are very damn good at what they do on those aspects. So our top 10 after the spring is wrapping up here, we have Texas Tech, and their overall player rating transferring in is an 82.56, and their overall transfer rating of players out is 62.85. And to kind of break that down real quick, is it's exactly like it sounds. That 82.56 in means that they are averaging a player rating of 82.56 out of 100 transferring in. And a 62.85, exactly like it sounds, on the out is what they have average player rating out of 100 transferring out. And honestly, Bryant, what we see here, and if people are listening to us right now, they probably hear that first number one ranked team at 82.56. Like, wow, that's kind of low. Honestly, an 82.56 when it comes to transfer grades is pretty damn good. And you will notice that as a trend as we go through these other top 10 teams. And Texas Tech's got money to spend, Bryant.
I mean, it seems like they were in on absolutely every big time player in the winter and especially in the spring. We'll talk about a guy that they might get back from on their team later on that transferred out and might be coming back. That might even boost this score even higher. But yeah, Texas Tech, they got some oil money or down there or something, some landman type money. And, they're getting everybody at least getting their name in the hat with everybody that enters the portal that, can play at a power four level.
Things are going well for Texas Tech. I mean, you just got to see it on the field, right? I mean, they are not shy of spending money. They are all over every player, like you said. Every time you click on a player and read more about the information going on with them in the portal, their name is involved. And hell, some of these guys, like you said, that we're going to talk about in a little bit, Texas Tech's involved in. Moving on to number 2, we have Ole Miss. They have an average rating player in of 76 and a player out of 66.16. So increased by about 10 points, pretty damn good. You see Ole Miss in here. They are damn near kind of like a Texas Tech. We saw this last year with Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. They're going to be in. They want to win now. They're never going to shy away from players in the portal.
No, the head coach, why am I blank? Lane Kiffin. He's big time portal guy. He loves it. I think he was one of the main forerunners in making this change in college football a few years ago, making it a for sure thing. So, like I said with Texas Tech, Ole Miss is always there. They are a team of portal players. It seems like year in and year out this past few seasons, and it's worked to some degree. So we'll see if that can continue. Pretty good. They lost a lot of players, but they obviously reloaded almost every position they lost. So um, I didn't expect anything different to see them high here in these rankings.
No, me either. This is just what they've made it clear. This is what they're going to do every year. They're going to recruit at a high level out of high school, and they're going to dive in the portal for everything else. They are not afraid of any of it. Moving on to number 3, we have LSU, an 82.88 in and a 69.41 out. And you might ask right away out there, Why is LSU at number 3 with a higher rating of 82.88? Why are they lower than Texas Tech and Ole Miss? That's simply because Texas Tech and Ole Miss have went out and signed more players out of the portal, which in full circle would be probably why their trend is a little bit lower on the player rating, because they went out and got more players. So then it then boosts their overall score up as an average, but the player rating could tick down a little bit. We're just kind of going out there and letting you know the player ratings because, Bryant, in my opinion, the player ratings matter more than anything, I feel like, because if you and I are coaches at a university and we go sign 27 players out of the portal and only one of them is an 80 or better and the rest are 40s, with all due respect, the 26 that are 40s and below don't really matter. So this is why we're just bringing you player ratings. But yes, LSU 82.88 in and a 69.41 out. That is a hell of a trend. That is a great trend. And I'm going to be honest with you, Bryant, with all the concern, I guess you could say, and the coaching conversation and how the interviews go and how some people view him and the press that he gets, I'm really surprised Brian Kelly at LSU does this well in the transfer portal at LSU with everything surrounded him. I know it's LSU and I know they have money and I know they're a name brand school, but still, I'm a little surprised by that.
Absolutely. And, we've talked about Brian Kelly many times on the show, and I think we both dislike him, at least as a head coach on the field and especially off the field. But, I really think them at 3 kind of goes to show this is pretty much, I think personally, I think you do too, a do or die season for them coming up in 2025. Um, they have to win football games and they have to win a bunch of them for sure, double digits, and be up there in the top of the SEC. And, I think his pitch to them was simply that we're only recruiting you and you're going to come and play and you're going to play a lot. Um, they lost a lot of big time players. They lost their probable starting quarterback, maybe one of the better quarterbacks in the country. I think Bryce Underwood was going to start as a freshman. He was going to be pretty good. And they lost him to Michigan. So uh, I think do or die, maybe you toned down on the antics a little bit. And it definitely showed here in the portal with pulling in a lot of big time players from across the country. So, like I mentioned, it was a make it or break it transfer portal season for them, and I think it definitely came to show to fruition here with them being third in these rankings.
Well, I'm with you on that. The Bryce Underwood massive loss, biggest loss. We talked about that in our signing day episode we did a couple months back. The biggest loss, biggest flip we saw all signing day by far and away. It wasn't close. But I want to say one thing. I think Garrett Nussmeier has a little bit to say about that. I think that might be, in my opinion, Bryant, why some of these guys are okay with coming into LSU. If I remember correctly, I think Nick Anderson left Oklahoma and came into LSU. That's a
Mm-hmm.
big get it receiver for them. He probably feels comfortable playing with Nuss. I mean, he might be the best returning starter in college football, maybe. I mean, it's up for debate. So I'm anxious to see how this works out. And yes, later in the off season here, going into the season, we're going to have an episode about some coaching hot seat candidates, and I would imagine Brian Kelly is really high up in our list. So
Mm-hmm.
this is do or die, and that may help some of these older guys come in and know that they're going to try to win right now. Moving on to number 4, we have Oregon at 86.9 in and a 66.06 out. Oregon checks in with the highest player rating on the in transfer metric, and this is just Oregon, man. This is what they do. Dan Lanning is a hell of a coach. The uniforms recruit themselves, and they're all Nike. That recruits itself, and they're a damn good program playing in the Big Ten now. So this comes of no surprise to me, other than the fact that they're not higher, to be honest with you.
No, they brought in a lot of players, and like we mentioned with LSU, it kind of prorates your average down a little bit. Oregon's just a team year in year out, though they trim the fat of guys who's maybe not going to see the field, but are still good, and they can set them off, and they can go out to greener pastures, and they pull in somebody that's better or more experienced and more proven, and they do it here again. Like you mentioned, Dan Lanning's a hell of a coach. I think he's a very likable guy, and he can recruit across the entire country, even though they're all the way out there on the West Coast. So definitely, like you mentioned, not a surprise to see them here at number 4. We'll continue to see a lot. We'll continue to see Oregon in the college football playoff for many years to come, I feel like.
Foreseeable future, I would think. Number 5, we have Miami with an 81.42 in and a 65.95 out. Miami's got a lot to replace. We've spoke on this show many a times how we are not Mario Cristobal fans, especially myself. Yeah, I think I'm going to say it again every time I do. One of the worst X's and O's coaches in college football. And Miami recruits itself, though. They have the old like nickname, the Bad Boys. I mean, that's just what they were. And so Miami recruits itself, and it's a pretty historic program. That helps. People love being in Florida. That helps. But they have a ton to replace. And this class was obviously headlined by Carson Beck. Obviously, he was not in the spring portal, but he did help bring in other recruits, I'm sure. So anxious to see how this plays out for Cristobal in Miami. And a ton to replace. There's just no way in hell they're better this year than what they were last year.
Yeah, I think this Miami situation here in the portal was kind of similar to LSU's, but on the flip side, LSU's was kind of like a coaching hot seat. We got to get it done now because of how I performed as a coach. Miami's was we got to get it done now because we're losing so many good players to either different teams, but the majority of them are going to get drafted here this weekend. So
Yeah.
it's good for your program to get players in the NFL, but
Yeah.
you got to reload for next season somehow, and they definitely did it here in the portal with an 81.42 percentage coming in. Like you mentioned, headlined by Carson Beck. Um, that Carson Beck conversation is a different one to have at a later date, but he'll be a good quarterback for them, I think, and he brought in a lot of good talent. And they also recruited pretty well on the defensive side of the ball as well. So I don't think Miami will be as high flying as they were last season, but they'll still be a good team as long as Cristobal can somewhat manage it.
Well, I mean, most teams can't say most teams. The higher end team should be able to compete at a high level in the ACC every year in football, the way it sits right now.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to number 6, we have Auburn at a 75.11 in and a 67.05 out. This is a pretty good Auburn football team. Hugh Freeze is a pretty damn good coach, very great recruiter. This is something that we all know. If you follow college football closely, you know that Hugh Freeze can get it done on the recruiting trail and clearly on the transfer portal trail now. And Auburn's got money to spend too. So really good stuff here from Auburn. Excited to see where this takes them this season. I don't think they're on a do it now, right now situation for Hugh Freeze, but it's starting to get to that point a little bit like, hey, it's time to go and let's go win some football games this year and show real signs of improvement and show a direction that this program's going in college football right now.
Yeah, Auburn had a lot of injuries this past season. A lot of those players ended up either leaving or graduating or transfer out. So they had quite a few of open positions to fill, and they definitely did that here. Um, Auburn, I feel like, is similar to where Mizzou was in, let's call it, the 2023 preseason. I don't know if they'll be 11-2 like that Mizzou team was, but they're poised to have a pretty good year. This is Hugh Freeze's third season coming out, and like you mentioned, great recruiter, and I think he's a pretty dang good coach as well. So, and Auburn is a storied program as well, and that gravitates players to their program. They just got to get over the hump. They've just had a lot of injuries and lost a bunch of games, and these guys in the transfer portal will definitely help with that.
You see a lot of these programs, like when it's their third year as the coach, it's kind of time to go. Like it's time
Mm-hmm.
to turn the page and get things going in the right direction. So I think Auburn does do that this season. We will talk more Auburn down the stretch in later episodes. I think we have a big thing coming for them. At number 7, we have Rutgers with a 77.18 in and a 62.95 out. Bryant, I'll be honest with you, man. I clearly you and I know a lot about college football. Excuse me. But I can't sit here and give you unlimited facts about Rutgers football. I think what they had last year, especially at the running back position, I'm drawing a blank on him. He was an absolute stud, ran the ball hard. But this is, I'm shocked to see them in the top 10, right? I hope this is good things for the Rutgers program, and I hope they can rattle some cages in the Big Ten. Do I think they do? Probably not, but I hope they do.
No, I was my first thing I was going to say was I'm sorry to the show and everybody listening, but I don't know a damn thing about Rutgers football. Um, Absolutely nothing. So I was shocked to see them at 7. I was kind of taking a double take and wondering maybe if you put the college basketball transfer portal rankings on here. But yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Rutgers, but like you said, let's hopefully they can shake it up in the Big Ten next season.
Hey,
Yeah,
I,
that's
I
just where
know
I'm going to leave it.
I know Greg Schiano's a good coach. I know he's clearly doing things
That's the only
right.
thing I knew about them was that their
I
head
mean,
coach.
so I hope Greg Schiano gets it going, and good for Rutgers, man. We may talk them down the stretch again. Moving on, we have Kentucky at number 8 with 73.64 in and a 67.13 out. This is it's time to get it going for Stoops in Kentucky. It's time. He is out of gas. There's the rope is at the end, and they've got to go. That's what I got to say about this, honestly.
100%. Kentucky is right in the same position that LSU is in. Mark Stoops would probably be another coach we talk about being on the hot seat. Personally, I really like Mark Stoops. I think he's a great coach, very personable guy. But I think his play style has kind of faded recently. Pretty much ever since Will Levis left and some of those big time players he had that are now in the NFL, they were not good last season, and really, honestly, the season before either. They've recruited very poorly out of high school in the past 3 or 4 years, so they had no other options to throw some money around and try to find some guys in the portal. We'll see if it works out, but Mark Stoops almost has to do a 180 on his coaching style to look at possibly seeing some improvement. I just don't see it happening, but if they're bringing in decent players like they would here, being number 8 in the top 10 in the transporter rankings, they got something going for them. So I think time will tell on the Wildcats 2025 season based on these transfers they're bringing in.
Yeah, without a doubt, it's definitely time, man, for the Kentucky Wildcats football program to go in the right direction. Kyle Monungai was the running back I was trying to remember from Rutgers a second ago. I just sat here
No idea.
pondering this whole time trying to remember him. Big back, Bryant. Big
You're
hit.
talking like
Like we said last week, we were talking about this. Like he'll run through a mother lover's head, dude. He's going through you. And I do remember Ethan Cal McManus being in that program now at the quarterback position. So
so.
just throwing some players out there for our Rutgers fans that are listening out there in case
We
they're
talking
wondering.
like are you talking like Eddie Lacy big? Are we talking like
No, I'm just
no, we're
talking
not.
like I'm not willing to put you and I together and meet him at the 50 head on type big. Like
Okay.
he's not going around us, he's going through us. And he was a stud. So I don't think he's there with that program anymore. I think he's moved on. So they may not be good again. I don't know. Moving on to number 9, Michigan. They have a 69.88 in and a 63.8 out. The Michigan Wolverines, this is no surprise. Seeing Michigan Wolverines anywhere in the top 10 of anything that has to do with a good metric, not surprised. And unless it was last year when it came to passing, I'd have been surprised then. But this Michigan Wolverines team looking to not necessarily rebuild, just reload, just a retool.
100%. They kind of saw the fallout of their championship season last year with losing a bunch of guys to the NFL. And it showed not playing to the typical Michigan type football season. But hey, they won the Ohio State game again this past season. That's kind of the point on the calendar that everybody pays attention to for this program. And like we mentioned just earlier, they got him Bryce Underwood come in. I think he'll compete for the starting quarterback um, position immediately. Now he's on transfer. He's high school, but building around with a lot of different guys on the offensive side of the ball as well in the transfer portal. So Michigan is on their way to reloading from that championship season and being right back in contention. I think. I don't know if I'll see it in 25, but I think we'll see it, near future.
Well, and that Bryce Underwood just looms huge. I think Bryce Underwood's why this recruiting, this transfer portal grade ended up getting so high and scratching the top 10. And Brian, I have no evidence to really back this up. I have no proof in the pudding to prove that I would be correct. But that's why this Ohio State game is so big on that schedule that they won that. Because I think we would have a different conversation when it came to coaching hot seats down the road. Sharon Moore's name may be in that conversation with how poorly that season went. I don't think Bryce Underwood probably would have ended up there. And then at that point, I don't think we would see Michigan in the top 10. And I think that all comes back to that Ohio State football game. Like I said, I have nothing to prove that my theory on that is correct. But evidence speaking in the past seasons of Ohio State and Michigan rivalries in football and how they perform, I think that Ohio State victory looms huge for careers, for recruiting, for everything across the board. Even when your season wasn't good, all the fans talk about, like you said, is, hey, we beat Ohio State. Ohio State won the national championship. We beat Ohio State. That's all everybody cares about at this point.
Absolutely. And Coach Moore, I was up and down with him this past season. And looking at him, he seems like he's kind of like a Marcus Freeman type coach where he may not be the best X's and O's coach, but he builds his coaching staff around him to help him figure that out. But that guy is going to be one of the best, most personal player relationship type of coach you're going to find in the country. And that definitely bodes well for something like this and recruiting guys out of the transfer portal, and it shows here with him being at number 9. So I think he's going to be around for a good while as long as he doesn't blow up and have a catastrophic season. But time will tell in Michigan, but they're definitely in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Big bounce back year for them. I think they can definitely get it done. Number 10, we have our Missouri Tigers rounding this out. Bryant, you and I aren't going to spend a whole lot of time on this one. Probably just going to say that it's Mizzou, give their ratings, and we're probably going to move on just because later we are going to do a whole segment just about the Missouri Tigers, and we can really dive into it then. So our Missouri Tigers coming in at number 10. They were higher until I think yesterday or today. I think they were in the top 7, I
Mm.
believe. And now they have been kind of bumped down by this surprising Rutgers, Kentucky, and Michigan run that these teams are on. But Mizzou with the 74.35 in and a 67.96 out. Real quick, Brian, tell me what you think about those ratings, and then we're going to move on.
I expected Mizzou to be top 10. I thought they'd be higher than 10. They brought in a lot of big time players, which we'll discuss, and didn't really lose a whole lot of proven players either. So I'm not surprised with them being at 10, and we'll go in more depth of some of those guys and why they're there at 10. But good thing from Mizzou that they needed to fill some holes with guys they've lost to the draft or to other teams, and they definitely did it.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure, Brian. And now we're going to turn the page a little bit into some of these top transfers, how some of these teams got their ratings. And want to stress this very importantly. This is really spring transfer portal only conversation. We did an episode a while back about the other transfer portal and who all was involved in that and gave live updates on the rankings. This is solely just spring. This is just the top transfers that Bryant and myself and Dave kind of discussed, who we thought should be on this list to talk about. And we're not going to talk about all 18 we have on our list. We're going to kind of announce them all and then kind of go back, probably do like 4 or 5 guys at a time, and then go back and pick and choose a guy or two to talk about just so everybody knows kind of what our structure here is with these spring transfer portals. But Bryant, let's waste no more time. We kind of hinted around about this guy a couple times so far already in the previous episodes. Nico Iamaleava, transferring from Tennessee to UCLA, and what drama this has been. This has been some of the craziest transfer portal drama I've ever seen. I mean, I don't remember anything like this. I don't know about you. I mean, Nico was the face of a college football team. He was the face of a university, led a team to a playoff march this last season. And all of this starts unraveling. And next thing you know, there's bad blood. He wants more money, and he's in the portal. You hear it's from the parents. There's speculation that their family was involved, really pushing this. Transfers to UCLA. I am still in shock by this, Bryant.
I 100% agree with you. I think this shows the bad side of college football and having agents meddling in with all this, and even family members. I don't know why, if I'm Nico, I would have my uncle and or dad, whatever it was, involved with this. That makes zero sense. Um, I'm an adult at this point. I think I can handle the majority of this stuff myself. He got too greedy, in my opinion. And I despise Josh Heupel as much as anybody else around here. And good for him, man. If I'm Josh Heupel, I would have done the same thing. If you want to be on this team, you want to basically quadruple what you're getting paid after a decent season, but you could have been a lot better. And your stats really weren't that well besides the first 2 or 3 games of the season. Goodbye, man. I'm sorry. I don't want this type of player on my team. You can go find money, whatever it's going to be somewhere else. And he went to UCLA. I've heard figures in the mid 1 million, so he did not get the 4 that he wanted, the alleged 4 million that he wanted, and so it's just how it's going to be. I think he'll be okay at UCLA, but he does not have the weapons that he had at Tennessee. Um, Overall, I think a very bad decision for Nico, but he saw money bags and he saw the money in his eyes, and I think his family member or his agent, whoever it may be, that was in the middle of this, kind of screwed him over.
Well, I think he entered the portal. I think he had too high of an evaluation and expectations. I think he thought a lot of teams would come running. And I'm sure there was a lot of teams that checked in, right? I mean, you and I are not a part of Nico's camp, so we don't necessarily know all the details of what was going on there. Just everything that we have read, I mean, this was a really bad move. Really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Unless this is truly what Nico wanted, and I doubt it. I doubt it. Why would you want to go play for UCLA instead of playing for Tennessee, who you just led to the playoffs, who has much better coaching? I mean, we saw UCLA's coach last year get up in his first season and couldn't even do his Big Ten press conference. I mean, the dude froze. The dude froze. I'm drawing a blank on his name. He used to be a running back there, but completely froze on stage. So Tennessee is much more proven, man. And what we see here is we see a good old fashioned quarterback swap. We see Joey
Yeah.
Aguilar, if I remember his name correctly.
Yep. Came from App
Used to
State to
used to play
UCLA.
at App State to
Now he's at Tennessee.
UCLA, now to Tennessee. Just the old quarterback swap, and got him at a much cheaper rate. And I fired off. Maybe I was just a little out of emotion the other day, a text and yours and mine and Dave's group, and just said, "Hot take: Joey Aguilar has a better season than Nico." But honestly, I'm going to kind of double down on that. I don't think Nico is going to have the talent at UCLA to be better than what Joey Aguilar has the potential to be at Tennessee. Now, I know Joey Aguilar has not played SEC talent. He's not been out there under the lights when there's 100,000 fans banging in his ear. But the talent around him is going to be better. The coaching around him is going to be better. It's a much better situation. He's an older player now. We may see this guy come in and light it up. Do I think that happens? Probably not. But I think it has a better chance of blossoming than Nico at UCLA does. Brian, I would not be surprised if we see Nico in the transfer portal come again next season. And also, while we're still talking about this, Nico's brother,
I was going to mention him.
Madden Iamalieva, transfers from Arkansas to UCLA. And if I remember correctly, Madden was at UCLA a couple months ago, transfers to Arkansas, and then now Arkansas to UCLA with his brother. This is just as crazy as it sounds coming out of our mouth, and as much as it doesn't make sense of what we're saying, that's what really just happened. That's how confusing it really is.
And the Madden kid actually got money from Arkansas. I saw a report today that they're requesting $200,000 that they gave him in NIL back because he did not fulfill whatever paperwork he signed when he went back to UCLA. So if I'm a team, I'm avoiding the Iamalieva family at all costs. I don't care how good you are. You could be the next, Michael Vick for all I'm concerned, and be lighting up college football, and I'm avoiding you. I mean, you're just a plague, it seems like. And Nico's not going to – he could be an amazing quarterback, but he just doesn't move the needle for me after what I saw at Tennessee last year. But I get he was young. He could still develop, but the pain and the suffering is not worth the cost, in my opinion.
Every week, Bryant, you, me, and Dave.
Yeah, when's it going to happen?
If Nico does it this week. I sit back and think, was there bad blood? Was it oil and water at that point already for Nico in Tennessee? And maybe he just kind of lost the interest? I don't know. I don't know. And you usually do see big progressions from your first season as a starter to your second season as a starter. So maybe it works really well out there at UCLA. Gosh dang, Brian, I wish I could remember their coach's name right now.
I'll pull it up.
Is it Buckner or Foster? Deshaun Foster? Is that it? Is it coming to me? Does that sound right? It may work. It may work. I hope it does work for Nico. I wish the best for student athletes, and I always wish they fulfill their dreams and their careers. And he was highly touted out of high school. We all know that. So
Deshaun Foster.
Was Deshaun Foster. Okay, it came back to me. So good luck to UCLA, Deshaun Foster, and the Iamalieva family. Hopefully it works out for them. Moving on to some other of these transfers, and Brian, just if you want to talk about a guy here, stock me. Just going to kind of go through 4 or 5 guys at a time. Like I said, Nico obviously was one we had to spend a little bit more time on than the rest. We have David Bailey, outside linebacker from Stanford, transferring to none other than Texas Tech. Talked about them earlier. A lot of money to spend, not afraid to spend it. Number 3, Jaden Ott, running back out of Cal, transfers to Oklahoma. This guy was a stud. And Bryant, we can visit him for a second if you want to, because I can tell that he piqued some interest. So go ahead.
It's not a whole lot the Jaden Ott deal. I think he'll be a good fit at Oklahoma, and that was a big time pickup for them.
Are you going to talk about Cal?
I'm going to talk about Cal losing 5 running backs in 24 hours to the transfer portal. They have 1 scholarship running back on their team right now. They lost 5 dudes in a 24-hour period, all at the running back position, to the transfer portal. And I dug into that a little bit. I thought that was extremely odd. Their running backs coach didn't leave. There was not a head coaching change. They just were all like, peace. Like, I think it was like a Tuesday too. They just all pieced out at the same time in one day. 5 players.
They've had 10 guys enter the portal.
In the spring, yeah, it's been bad.
Rapidly.
Spring football
offensive
must have been bad.
I don't think they have any guys that threw a pass last year really returning on that roster. Like you see Francisco Mendoza, he bounced in the fall and he's
Mm-hmm.
out too. I think he went to Indiana, if I remember correctly. I
Yep.
mean, you decimated. This is a decimated roster. And they brought in Ron Rivera this year to kind of be their general manager of their football program. Uh,
He's gonna be like Will Smith in the last episode of Fresh Prince of Bel Air, where he's in the living room looking around like,
hands in the pockets, looking around.
"Where's everybody at?"
Riverboat Ron, what are you doing, man? You got nothing left. You don't have a football team, man. You're rolling out JV guys.
Yeah,
This is
Jaden Knott's a good player, but
really
I
bad.
just wanted to bring up that five running backs gone in a 24-hour period. That's unheard of, and we see a lot of wild shit in the transfer portal.
That offense is just on life support. Hopefully they figure it out. Cal Bears have a pretty easy schedule. So,
Jaden Knott will
damn.
be a good target. He's good at catching the ball out of the backfield more than probably he is running the ball. An Austin Eckler type player. So that'll be good for John Mateer there in Oklahoma and try to get them back on track next season if he can
Hey,
stay healthy.
John Mateer, Brent Venables, they're piecing together a little nice squad there at Oklahoma. Interested to see their pass catching abilities out there, but Jaden Knott, good get for them. Day one starter for them, in my opinion. Moving on, we have Bo Atkinson, a stud defensive end out of North Carolina. A lot of predictions around him have him landing at Ohio State. Wouldn't surprise me. Ohio State gets who they want, and that would be a good get for them. They got a little bit of guys to replace after this last season. They're on the defensive line. This would be a really good get. Does have a lot of Jack Sawyer comps, so I think this would be kind of a plug and play. I'm not saying he's going to be him because that's a hard guy to replace, but could be that potential. And at number 5, we have Gio Lopez. And real quick, I am saying number 5, number 6, number 3, number 4, whatever. This is no particular order. This is not how we rank them. This is just guys on our list, just kind of keeping it organized here. But at number 5, we have Gio Lopez down. Quarterback out of South Alabama has now transferred to UNC. Bryant, real quick, do we think Bill Belichick truly got his quarterback?
I don't know, man. It's tough. Gio Lopez is really good at South Alabama, but that's obviously it's an FCS team, I believe, or a lower FBS team. And those guys tend to struggle when they come up and immediately get thrown in. But if there's anybody, there's a coach that can coach up a quarterback, it's definitely Bill Belichick, and he's not going to have a gauntlet of a schedule like you would in the SEC at North Carolina. So um, didn't have overly eye popping stats, but he's a very mobile quarterback from what I've seen. So could be a good opportunity for him and definitely a big step up.
Yeah, he can get out and run for a first down when he needs to. Threw for nearly 2,600 yards last year, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Took care of the ball okay, but it is a big step. Interested to see how it goes, but copy and paste what you said. If there's a guy that can get the most out of somebody, Bill Belichick will find it. Next, at number 6, we have Trebor Pena, wide receiver from Syracuse. A lot of Penn State predictions here. Last I looked and checked on him, this would be a really good get at receiver, especially for Penn State. This would be really good for Drew Aller to have a guy to go through the football to. Interested to see how that plays out at Penn State. Not going to spend time on them really right here because there's nothing to talk about with them too much. But I think it would be a really good get for them to dip their toes in this Pena campaign to come to Penn State because they need all the help they can get at receiver.
Yeah, and Syracuse was a sneaky good team. We talked about them a little bit, in the fall about how well they've played and how good McCord had that team going. And he was one of the main reasons why they were rolling on offense. Had almost 1,000 yards, and he had 9 touchdowns to go along with that. So he's still got a couple years left to play. And I think if he goes to Penn State, that would be good for uh, whoever is Drew Aller coming back there.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah,
He's
so
back at
Drew
Penn State.
Aller, that'd be a good weapon for him, maybe replacing some of the targets that like a Tyler Warren
They
had
got
last season.
Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen,
I forgot
and
about that yet.
plug this guy in. And obviously this one pissed Fran Brown off a little bit. Syracuse's head coach. He had quite the way with words after this guy entered the portal, and I don't think he was very happy. Go watch that interview or that recording if you're interested to see what he had to say. At number 7, we have Elo Madozi, a linebacker out of Army, transferring to Georgia. You don't see this a whole hell of a lot. Guys transferring from service academies into a powerhouse like Georgia. Everybody knows who Georgia football is out there. So would love to see how this one plays out. At number 8, we have Murad Watson, defensive lineman from Syracuse, transferring to Texas. This guy is probably going to get some serious PT at Texas if I had to guess, Bryant. This guy is actually a pretty good player and a really good get for Texas here.
Yeah, big defensive lineman. He's going to fill a lot of run gaps in that defense. Didn't have eye popping stats, but he was only a freshman last season. I think he wasn't overly recruited, but he definitely came into his own game in college. And you go into a school like Texas, I don't think he'll immediately play because they recruit the position very
Yeah.
well already. But definitely a good pick and definitely a big step up for him going from Syracuse to the SEC at Texas.
A lot to replace there at Texas too on the defense side of the ball. So
Absolutely.
good depth piece here. At number 9, we have the always interesting Micah Hudson, wide receiver at Texas Tech, transfers to A&M, transferring back now to Texas Tech. There's reports. I don't know if that's all the way guaranteed yet, but that's the way it appears. This is one of those guys that's using and abusing the portal. This is where I don't enjoy talking about it. So I really don't want us to spend too much time on him because he gets enough time in the headlines. But Brian, this is what you were talking about earlier. This is the abuse of the portal and gives it a really bad look.
Absolutely, but, I don't really understand leaving, going to across the state and then coming right back, but he must not like what he saw in the spring football camp, but he's still a hell of a player. He was, I think, at one point, the number
Yeah.
one guy in the transfer portal for a majority of the winter. Amazing wide receiver, and so he's going back to where he came from as far as college is concerned. Not set in stone, but it's been overly predicted a few times already for he's going back to Texas Tech, so we'll see what happens, and we'll see if he can put this behind him and play some football.
Top 3 wide receiver, if I recall correctly, out of the 2024 class too, Bryant. So this is a
Yep,
really, really good player. At number 10, we have Julian Neal, a cornerback from Fresno State. He transferred to Stanford. He's now at Arkansas. Good piece for Arkansas. Arkansas needs a lot, and they could use help everywhere they can get it. So good get for them. Good depth piece on the back end of their defense. At number 11, we have Hakeem Williams, a wide receiver from Florida State, who has entered the portal here recently. And this was a 5-star out of high school as well. Had some comps to Julio Jones. This is a guy that most teams would probably love to get their hands on, and really good receiver.
absolutely. Obviously, Florida State had a very catastrophic season last year as far as their stands are concerned, and this is kind of the fallout from that is you lose big time players. Yeah, they might have been completely committed to you out of high school, but if you have a season like that and you got a guy that has so much talent, he's going to go fishing and try to find greener grass on the outside, and this is what Hakeem is doing. Um, I think he's an outstanding player. He could possibly be as good as Julio Jones. I didn't see that comp, but he's probably got a million phone calls. And I think that asking price is going to be quite high.
Oh yeah, I would imagine so. Especially getting this late when the team needs a wide receiver, he could probably get what he wants. And moving on here, Brian, since we are running a little long, we want to get into some serious Mizzou talk. I'm just going to kind of rattle off these last 6 or 7 on our list, and if you want one you want to dive into, we'll circle back and get them. Steve Angeli, this was an interesting one for me. Quarterback from Notre Dame, got some PT last year, played pretty good when he came in. Transfers to Syracuse. That's 2 years in a row now. Syracuse dips their toes and gets a really good quarterback out of the portal, following last year's Kyle McCord. Number 13, we have Jaden Rashada. A lot of drama around him every season, it seems like. Excuse me, constantly dipping his toes in the portal. He's been at Georgia. He's been talks with Miami, Florida, Arizona State. He's been committed to all these schools, decommitted. Now where's he going to go? Who knows with Jaden Rashada? He's got his name in everybody's basket. At number 14, we have Bay Jobe, from defensive end from Kansas. Really instant impact player, in my opinion, wherever he goes. Interested to see where he ends up. We have Jeremiah Wilson, cornerback from Houston. Adri Halsey, safety from Houston. Both those guys, instant impact players, in my opinion, on somebody's back end somewhere for defense. At number 17, we have Amari Campbell, linebacker from UNC. And number 18, we have Bernard Gooden, defensive lineman from USF. Arguably one of the better players in the spring portal window so far. Brian, if you have any of those guys you want to talk about real quick, hammer it out.
Yeah, I actually just want to talk about Steve Angeli a little bit. I think that was kind of a shock to Notre Dame. I felt like they definitely thought he was going to stay. It kind of came out of nowhere, at least from what I could read from some of the reports I read. He's going to Syracuse, and I think that's a good spot for him. I think he definitely could start there. And the reason I think it's maybe a shock to them is uh, last season Notre Dame moved one of their backup quarterbacks to the wide receiver position, And I read this morning that now they're thinking about bringing him back to the quarterback. So they might be a little shell shocked, a little thin at the position when Steve Angeli left and didn't realize they'd have to fill a hole that they didn't expect to fill. So um, we'll see what Notre Dame does, but I think that's a good move for Angeli. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's going to be an outstanding guy by any means, but he can really sling the ball. We saw that when he came in for a series for Riley Leonard last season, and I think that's a good move for him. And Syracuse will be a good spot. Uh, Not as big of a spotlight there, and can kind of work on his craft and get better.
So if I'm a Notre Dame fan, since you brought Steve Angeli up, am I confident that CJ Carr looks that good as a redshirt freshman, or am I nervous because I thought maybe Angeli was probably going to start and now he's gone? I don't feel like Angeli would leave Notre Dame for Syracuse if he was going to start. So I feel like I'd be inclined to think CJ Carr looks really good. Am I right about that? You think, or what's your kind of your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think CJ Carr probably had this pretty well wrapped up, and maybe that's why it happened because in spring football maybe they kind of saw the writing on the wall. Steve Angeli did, and this is why he moved. But he was I think he still had a chance to maybe push it in fall camp and in summer
Yeah,
camp. So um, I don't know. He just apparently didn't see it and maybe saw more in Syracuse and how good Kyle McCord was there last season and wanted to dip his toes in those waters.
yeah, that one did kind of shock me too. I saw that his name was kind of coming up a little bit, and the next thing you know, he's in. Was kind of shocked to see that. So glad you stopped me and brought us back to him. But Bryant, it's our favorite time. Let's really talk Missouri Tigers football and discuss the spring portal window and what it has been for them. Once again, Tigers fans that are listening, this is spring portal conversation really only. May make a few talks about the roster here or there, but only because it flows. This is really focusing on what we've lost and what we've gained in the spring portal. So, Brian, I'm going to kick it over to you. Take it home on that.
Yeah, Drink has said multiple times over the past few seasons when the transfer portal has kind of become the thing in the offseason. He said, I'm replacing depth with I'm replacing promise with production, and that's exactly what he's doing with this Mizzou team. They're replacing unproven depth. They're not just kicking those guys to the curb. They're just maybe encouraging them to transfer and maybe look at more playing time in other places, and then picking up guys that have played for either a big time teams or have put up big numbers at smaller programs, and that's exactly what they've done. So good to see. It's a good position to be in. I'd rather be in that than having to be like in the shoes of like an LSU or Kentucky where I'm scrambling to try to save my next season in the portal. That doesn't always seem to work. But in the spring, it's honestly been pretty quiet for Mizzou. I'm going to go over some notable entries in the portal that people may recognize, and then the three commits we have thus far. So the first one I'm going to talk about was defensive end Eddie Kelly. He was a backup defensive end, but he played a lot of snaps last season for Mizzou. He transferred out and went to West Virginia. The second guy is also a defensive end. He was a backup, true freshman. Ja'Kai Lang. He was out of Troy, Missouri. He played. I think he had 3 sacks. He was highly coveted coming out of high school. So it's kind of tough to see him to leave. He's probably the biggest loss, I'd say, in the spring. But Mizzou's loaded on the defensive end, so I don't really necessarily blame him. So he transferred to SMU. The third guy I'm going to talk about is Makai Gabor. He transferred in from Nebraska, but he was only here over the spring. And what I'm hearing is Mizzou linebacker Tristan Newsome was actually granted another year of eligibility because he started in JUCO. So he'll be back, and I think that pushed Makai back in the depth chart. Didn't really like it, and so he actually transferred and went to UNC. So I think that's a good move for him, and I was excited to see him play. But Mizzou is also quite loaded at linebacker as well, so I also don't blame him. And the last one is kind of a whatever. Drew, big time Pine, transferring quarterback. He's going to where Mizzou quarterbacks go to die in Bowling Green. We saw that a few years ago with Connor Bazelak going there. And now he's also transferred to Bowling Green for probably his like 12th season in college football. So we'll see what he can do. Now we'll talk about the commits that Mizzou has gotten in the spring portal. I'll rattle them off here. They got Gavin Hoffman, a tight end, Xavier Lloyd, a receiver, and Jalen Early, a offensive lineman. I think our biggest pickup here is Gavin Hoffman. He was a tight end at Iowa last season, tight end U. He didn't see the field very much, but he was the number one recruit out of Kansas in 2024 class. He's a big tight end, 6'5", 237, and he is a strictly receiving tight end. Mizzou has Brett Norfleet on their team. I truly think Norfleet is a better blocker than he is receiver, but he's still very good. Gavin Hoffman is the total opposite. He can block, but that dude can run Brock Bowers tight routes out of any. He can spread out to the very outside. He can spread in the slot, and he can get out of 3-point stance and run really great routes. I'm very excited for him. And Mizzou was his only visit, and he wanted to come here, but he received 30 calls the first day he was in the portal. So he was obviously highly sought after. Second guy I'm going to talk about, like I mentioned, is Xavier Lloyd. Started at Kansas State and transferred to Illinois State. Played sparingly at Kansas State, but last year he had over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns at Illinois State. Um, Mizzou is decent at the wide receiver. We had to place a lot of players. Obviously, Luther Burden's gone. Theo Weiss is gone. But we picked up some guys in the fall portal. And Lloyd is definitely a good backup, give me a breather type receiver to come in and maybe finish out a drive. He's an outside receiver. He's 6'2", 195, and he also had over 20-plus phone calls the first day in the portal as well. So great pickup for them there. And then the last guy, the only offensive lineman we've got in this spring portal is Jalen Early out of Florida State. This is strictly a depth piece. He started a lot of games last year for Florida State, but it's only really because of injury. He's moved around from right guard to right tackle, and he played okay at best, took a lot of penalties, and gave up a lot of sacks. So if he can kind of get back into his rhythm and not be the surefire starter that he was at Florida State and work his way into a starting role down the road, I think he could be a good player. He's a big dude, 6'4", over 300 pounds. So he fits the bill, just needs to get his feet back underneath him. But honestly, Mizzou really hasn't been in on a lot of other guys as I've read or know at this point as far as guys coming in. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, but pretty much every guy that's visited has committed. So that's always good to see. And we'll see what they do down the road here in the spring. But it's been a pretty quiet spring, but I'd probably rather it be that way than the other way around.
What I like about Lucas and Jalen Early, Bryant, for me, is the playing time they've had, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
Early was kind of thrusted into that role because of injury or earned that role in the offseason, what he did do was play. And he played at
Mm-hmm.
Florida State, and they weren't good, but they played big time games. They had big time opponents. That, to me, is reassuring when you're a Mizzou fan. When you bring a guy in that has some PT that's not necessarily proven, but has proven enough, right? Or you can kind of get him in and kind of mold him your way, and you have a guy that if there are injuries here, or hell, he goes out and performs in camp well, you can feel okay because he's done this before at Division I level. That's what I like about him. And Xavier Lloyd, this is a guy that's been around for a little bit. Definitely hasn't been the most hyped receiver in college football by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a guy, to your point, where could be a wide receiver 3 for you. At times, maybe a wide receiver 2 at best. I think he does have a ceiling, but a guy that you could feel comfortable getting the ball to on a third down if you need a first down. This is what I feel good about. He's played, and he's gone
Mm-hmm.
out there and made big time catches. He's nearly 1,000 yard receiver. So yeah, I feel pretty good about those two. Love the Gavin Hoffman piece. I think that goes without being said. To be honest with you, I personally think Brett Norfleet is really damn good. I'm one that is a firm believer in him, and I love the fact that there's times that we can maybe put Hoffman and Norfleet on the field at the same time. I think that
Mm-hmm.
is an absolute mismatch nightmare. It's a lot to say there. A mismatch nightmare for other teams' linebackers, other teams' safeties, and you sprinkle in our receiving depth that we have. That is one thing that Mizzou does have now is receiving depth. You and I talked a little bit how, unfortunately, we have Courtney Crutchfield has moved on from Mizzou. That was my most exciting player. We did an episode about that, and he was my number one most exciting player for this coming season. It's a shame he's gone. I think he would have had a big role, but that opens up more avenues for other players when you have this much depth at the receiving position. So you sprinkle in Hoffman and Norfleet with that. I think that Bo Perbula, who I think is probably the projected starter of this football team, I think they have unlimited targets, Brian. I
Mm-hmm.
really do. I think they have enough guys to go around without a doubt.
Yeah, let's kind of flow into a little bit of some of the other players they got on offense. I do think Bro Perbeal is going to start. The only thing that worries me about Mizzou is the tackle positions.
Yes, the offensive line
We
has
have
me a little worried.
we have one of the best left guards in college football with Caden Green. I think Connor Tolson's a very solid center. We got a guy out of Michigan, right guards, played a bunch of games for them and was on their national championship team on the offensive line. And Dominic Gadice, so he's going to play right guard most likely. But our left tackles from West Virginia and our right tackles from Wake Forest. That scares me a little bit. Doesn't mean somebody else could come in and replace them. But if they can manage and hold up and keep Bo upright. Granted, Bo's an amazing scrambler, so he's going to get out and run the ball if he needs to. But if they want to be a great offense like they have been the past few seasons, they're going to have to pass. Um, but they do have the players. I mean, you got Jamal Roberts returning running back, but Mizzou probably has one of the best running backs of the SEC this season in Ahmad Hardy. If you watch highlights from him at Louisiana Monroe, yeah, I was there, but that dude was a true freshman, and he runs literally exactly like Ashton Genty does. He literally is going to run around you. He's not getting tackled. That dude is an animal, so I'm very excited about him. Um,
Yeah, I think he was arguably the best running back in the portal.
he was the
All
best
the
running back in the portal.
spring, fall, whatever you want to call it, all the portal combined. I think he was the best ranked running back in the portal.
Absolutely. So
So that's a
big things out
massive
of him.
get.
Ass of get. Um, and he's going to be a dynamic player. And I talked about it earlier a little bit. Mizzou lost a lot at the wide receiver position. Mookie Cooper retired from football. Luther's probably going to be a first round pick this weekend. And I also think Theo Weiss will probably get drafted as well. That's
Yes.
your top three guys leaving. But we replaced Luther with Kevin Coleman. Both guys were in the same class in St. Louis and both highly recruited. That's a good pickup there. Some of the other
That's a
guys
proven that's a proven guy. That's a guy that can come in
played at
and
Louisville and then Mississippi State. Yeah, proven guy is going to
yeah,
come in and do the
proven guy.
same thing. He's not obviously, I don't think, as good as Luther was as far as yards after catch, but he's going to fill pretty much the same position that they had. And then honestly, the other guys are guys that we've had in the program already. You got Daniel Blood, you got Josh Manning, who I think is going to be really good.
Marquise
Marquise
Marquise Johnson.
Johnson is always there. He's always the over the top speedy guy in his third season. Probably our best all around receiver.
If they
He
use Marquise Johnson right, Brian, he will be the best receiver on this football team.
absolutely. It's just a matter of quarterback that can throw it deep to him like Brady really couldn't do. So,
Well, and keep him on the field. He gets banged up a lot. Get him off the damn punt team
yep,
and
yep.
just let him be a receiver.
hmm Honestly, other than I don't think Mizzou is going to be as good as they were the past 2 years, but I don't think they're going to be a major regression. Personally, I think Mizzou is going to have one of the best defenses in the SEC. Personally, they're
That's where, yeah,
absolutely loaded on that side of the football. We got two five-star defensive ends, both former Georgia players, a great interior offensive line. Freshman All-American got in from linebacker that's now going to start for us next to a proven player in Tristan Newsome. Um, Jalen Catalon, who's played at Texas and Arkansas, that guy's been in I almost said the NFL in college football for I think this is his seventh season. Does have some injury concerns, but he's a proven vet. My really only concern is the cornerback position, but we got a lot of good guys there too, like Toriano and Drayden Norwood. So those guys have all played big time football. It's just a matter. I think this team's going to go how the offense goes. So we'll see. I was a little discouraged after the season how it ended. It ended good with the bowl win, but a lot of guys left, and I think Mizzou's done a good job in fixing the holes and also coaching up some of the players they already had.
well, and I think this defense could be by far and away the most improved unit on this football team. Really damn good, like you said. I mean, you sprinkle in Zion Young, Damon Wilson, and a guy that and to your point a second ago, actually, before I go any further, Toriano Prada at this point, from what I'm understanding, is not even a starter anymore. So that
Mm-hmm.
that has to make you feel semi good about the cornerbacks and what they're showing because Toriano's not bad. There are some
No,
times where he gets beat, he gets caught looking in, and he gets beat over the top. You fix that. He's been around for a while now. He's got some experience. I think that gets fixed. That's an easy fix. And my most exciting player on the team is Dalen Carnell. Guy's been around for a while on this football team, loves the program, and he's a hard-nosed football player. Hits hard. I'm really excited for what this defense can do, Bryant. Hell, I'm excited for what this Mizzou team can do. It's hard for me to buy into what Drinkwitz says when he says this is the most talented team I've ever had here at Missouri. Hard to buy into that. Is that
a little
just
bit of
coach?
coach talk there, I
Is that
think.
just coaching? Yes. Is that just coach talk? Coaches being coaches? I don't know, but part of me maybe believes him. So excited to see where this thing goes, Brian. And more Mizzou talk coming from us down the stretch. We'll probably dive into a lot of these teams. We're going to do some real conference deep dives as the season or the off season goes on and we inch closer to the regular season. But that's all I have here in this episode, Brian. If you have anything else, go ahead and let her rip. And if not, I'll get us out of here.
I'm good. We kind of got through pretty much, it seems like the off-season talk for the most part as far as transfer portal and draft, and seems like most of the reviews from last year. I think it's kind of time to move into maybe recruiting, high school class of 2025, and then into the summer, kind of talking about who's going to be good and who's going to be bad, and players we think are going to be good in all these teams. Talk about each team specifically in each conference and go from there. I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to be just as wild as last season as far as the teams that are vying for playoff spots. So we have exciting shows coming up, and hope everybody stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep following along with us. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming ahead, like Bryant just said. And the fun stuff really begins. The off season, it can kind of become a lull, but we're going to spice things up and really give some hot takes. You know, we like to do that kind of thing around here. So we will definitely be doing that moving forward. But yes, this was our spring transfer portal episode. By the time this comes out, the NFL draft will be going on. Make sure you're tuned into that. Hit us up with any questions or comments you have about that. We'll dive into those as well. And hey, you can follow us on X at DT underscore sports underscore, Instagram Deep Threat Sports with a Z, Facebook and TikTok at Deep Threat Sports Network, Spotify and YouTube at Deep Threat Sports. Hey, that's Bryant. I'm Collin. We'll have Dave with us next time, most likely, as long as he's not become too busy of a man. But hey, man, until next time, peace.